Everything a human does will always be in service to something. When we talk about repairing ourselves or getting rid of maladaptive behavior, self-sabotage, coping mechanisms that are painful to ourselves, we often want the discomfort or the end to be fixed, but that's not where it starts. I've been reading Brianna Wiest's The Mountain Is You, which is a book about self-sabotage and where it comes from. And I think people don't go as far as to think about that. Why they do the things they do. Why they do the things they'd want to stop. You self-sabotage because it works. Because even if consciously you know that this activity or this behavior of yours is something that you want to change or is unsightly or is something you dislike, it is something that works for its intended purpose. And there are two ways to solve self-sabotage, right? If you can even call it that. The first way being, the self-sabotage is addressing something. It isn't something you just do compulsively. It might be at this point, but when you do the problem behavior, what's happening around you? What circumstances are you wherein you reach for that behavior? There was a lab experiment done. Pharmaceutically drugged water and regular water were both offered to mice. And the experiment was on which water the mice would choose, given they had enrichment or not, whether or not they were able to form social bonds or have a wheel or play with each other, or they just sat idly. Despite drug-infused water and regular water being offered on equal supply to both populations of mice, the population with enrichment and social interaction did not go for the... I'm trying not to say the drug's name, in part because I don't know it specifically, and in part because I don't want to get demonetized, despite not making any money here. The chemically altered water was only taken in excess in spaces wherein the mice had no enrichment, were otherwise lost or unable to act on anything. All they had was the water. When the mice were truly happy, or stimulated, truly excited to just exist around in their enclosure, they went for regular water. What did they need the extra for? Consider what is driving you to do that self-sabotaging behavior. Is it for relief? Is it for a quick pause in a space? Is it that your immediate surroundings are otherwise too much for you, that you have to find alternative means to calm yourself down? When someone doom scrolls, right, they doom scroll instead of going out to a park or playing with friends or cooking or exercising or anything that is supposed to give us happiness, right? They don't do that because they don't want to be happy. They don't doom scroll because they'd rather be upset. Well, maybe some would. Many a time, the alternatives aren't as accessible to them as doom scrolling is. In terms of a relief from the world, an ability to just shut everything out, it's very likely that this behavior formed because you can't, at a moment's notice, call up a friend and talk all the time. You can't, in a moment's notice, go to the park, or can't, in a moment's notice, bench 200 pounds. You always have your phone with you. And therefore, you always have that quick release from things. I mean, that's how self-sabotage happens, but I haven't really addressed how to stop it. Your self-sabotage is addressing something. We're talking about looking around to see what's causing it. Do you feel anxious or nervous or lonely or sad? Fixing that, and I know that's the bigger problem, but fixing that is going to fix your self-sabotage. Your self-sabotage is very, very good at helping you cope with that problem, and specifically not dealing with that problem. To address that problem, to make tangible steps aside of your doom scrolling or your self-sabotage, will in turn make you need the self-sabotaging habit less and less and less. And I'm not saying it's easy to break habits. It's incredibly hard to make and break habits because humans are creatures that like to think of themselves as static. They don't like change. They don't like even micro adjustments in their life. There's something called behavior momentum, wherein if you do something today, it's very likely you'll do it tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after. And if you've had that momentum building for over the course of months, weeks, in the most severe depressions, years, yes, it's gonna be terrible. It's gonna be incredibly hard to break it. I'm not saying that breaking habits is easy, but what you're fighting for is too important to let go of. This idea of yourself as happy and put together and enjoying life sans these behaviors is too important to give up because you're tired, because you're frustrated, because you'd rather do the same thing. So fix the problem. I think that comes off as condescending. I think people go, well, if I knew how to fix the problem, of course I would have. There are so many things that build up to me doing these bad habits, but I do these bad habits because there's no functional, amenable way for me to address these problems. If I frequently dissociate into 16-hour video game binges because rent is incredibly high and the only relief I have is zoning out for a very long time to escape reality, then what do? Reality's so hard. Well, I'd still challenge you to fix reality. But the alternative way is to replace the behavior. You need to address that problem somehow, those feelings somehow. They're not going to go away just because you get rid of the coping mechanism. In fact, the opposite. Like getting rid of an alcoholic's alcohol. You're going to be craving it because the world's going to continue being hard on you and you have nothing to cope with it. This is the biggest issue with self-sabotage. It's that it is helpful. It is only self-sabotage because it's not effective towards something else you want to do. Because if you could live that life, where you're just constantly in bed, then you would do it. It's addressing the issue. But no, you need to find something else, another behavior, to replace that and slowly push yourself in that direction than continuing where you are now. And it's going to require change. And change is hard. But you've got this. Ding, 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 10 minutes.